Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here this morning to talk about the Traitors Season 2, Episode 2, titled Welcome to the Dark Side. On the last episode, Alan Cumming recruited Dan and Phaedra to be the traitors. The players had a mission in the lock that they conveniently won just in the nick of time, and our traitors decided and sent out a recruitment invitation. If you need to catch up, check out the link below to my playlist for previous recaps. If you like what I'm doing, consider subscribing. I'm trying to hit 600 subscribers by February 1st. So let's dive into it. We open the episode to Phaedra saying the new recruit wants to win and has killing in their blood. Dan says their reputation is cutthroat, cunning, and deceptive. It's revealed that they picked Parvati, which I thought was the correct decision. Parvati happily accepts the invitation, saying, "I think it's time to put on my devil horns and play the dark side." Before Parvati meets the other traitors, Dan and Phaedra still need to murder someone. They discuss Kevin, who's enjoying a luxurious bath. Dan suggests Bananas, who's stripping down in his room from his silk robes. And Phaedra suggests Peppermint, who's tucked on her pillow like a mint because she has a lot of knowledge of reality TV. They finally make their decision. The players reconvene at breakfast. Ekin-su says she's relieved to be alive, but starving and is focused on the smoked salmon. Peter is committed to winning and hates losing. Dan is having a blast drinking an orange juice and leaving traitors' fingerprints everywhere. Phaedra tells us that as a lawyer, she keeps deadly secrets all the time. Trishelle comes in and tells the group about her scuff-up with Peppermint the night before. Parvati makes her emergence as a traitor and feels like everyone is staring at her. Tamara comes back from being sick, and I feel like Tamara is in an interesting place now because they can all imply that she wasn't recruited and probably isn't a traitor. The final two to come back are Kevin and Peppermint. Janelle announces that Bananas was murdered. Peppermint is like, wait, Johnny Bananas was murdered? No, Peppermint, Sally Bananas was murdered. Flashback to Bananas opening his letter and finding out that he was murdered. He says the house is going to be a lot less fun without him, and I kind of agree, though Bananas is someone who's always going to be the same no matter if he's a traitor or a faithful. The fan reaction to this murder was so mixed. So many people are so happy or so upset about this. At this point, I do feel like Bananas doesn't come on these shows for the money. He comes on to have a good time and to make good television. We've actually seen recently that he's more willing now to lose a show if he feels like it would make a better show. I can see the decision for the traitors to cut him at this point because firstly, he's not controllable. He's not stupid. Also, he's a permanent adversary to the traitors because you can never recruit him. If you recruit him, he'll certainly turn on you and get you out of the game because that makes good television. So you might as well do it as soon as you can. After the murder, CT feels nervous that he'll be out next. Deontay randomly asks Peppermint in front of the whole group to explain about the fight with Trishelle. Peppermint doesn't even remember the fight because it was more of just an exchange of words than any kind of argument or fight, and says, if you get murdered, Trishelle, it might be by my outfit, but not by me. And then she struts back and forth in front of the table. Also, if you're gonna say that, it better be the best outfit I've ever seen. Alan comes in telling them that Bananas is now off the menu for breakfast and throws his photo on the ground. He instructs them to split into 3 groups for the challenge. They disperse around the house. Dan talks to Parvati, feeling her out before she knows that he's a traitor. In the kitchen, Peppermint defends herself, saying if Trishelle isn't murdered, then she's faithful. After she leaves, CT and Marcus call her defensive. Outside, Tamara is convinced that John is a traitor. Peter brings up John's breathing issues from the previous episode. Sandra reminds us that she's coming for Parvati. Parvati, you better lay low. In the mission, they're split into 3 teams, red, yellow, and blue, and Alan is wearing a scarecrow fascinator. He instructs them to get to his field of gold to win $20,000. The teams don't really matter for this because they're going down 3 separate paths but answering the same questions and getting to the same place. So they're running down 3 separate paths. Along the way, they're opening locked boxes with questions based on questionnaires that they took earlier. Scarecrow dummies with their names on them will represent the answers, and they need to get them right to unlock their box to move forward. For example, it'll ask them who is smarter, person A or person B, and if they get it wrong, they have to go back and get the other scarecrow. After they get 3 of their questions right, they'll get to a field that has a bunch of scarecrows. In the scarecrows' chests are money or shields. So they get started and they all start running. Tamara, who called out of work yesterday for not feeling well, is running like no problem today. The first question is, who do you trust most, Larsa or Marcus? All 3 teams pick Marcus and get it right. Poor John falls and wipes out for the second challenge in a row. As they're running, Tamara tests John, who said he has asthma, asking if he has an inhaler, and he says no. Speaking up for the asthmatic community, I have asthma. I go so many places without bringing an inhaler. So Tamara, you better chill. The next question is, who's the most popular person, Deontay or Peppermint? Peppermint is unhappy when they drop her dummy on the ground and go for Deontay's. The right answer is Peppermint, and yellow team is the only team to get that right on first go, so they get a little bit faster, I guess. The third question is, who needs to speak up more, Sheree or Dan? They all pick Dan and get it right. Yellow team gets to the scary scarecrow field, where they have to rip open the scarecrows to find gold or shields. They're ripping violently into these scarecrows. Dan is the only player to find a shield, and they find $16,000 worth of gold bars. Back at the house, Dan meets with Parvati again, and I think he's really overworking her here, in my opinion. MJ, Parvati, Sandra, and Tamara say it's between Peppermint and John for banishment. John sneaks up behind them, and Tamara reminds us that she's suspicious of him. In the kitchen, Peppermint is still advocating for herself and messes up her words, saying she's a traitor instead of saying she's a faithful by mistake, which is such a royal mistake. Larsa is really quick to jump on Peppermint's mistake and not be willing to let it go. Trishelle is still on her anti-Peppermint campaign. Max is over the whole situation. Sheree believes Peppermint. At the first roundtable, which is my favorite part of every episode, Peppermint raises her hand to speak first. Trishelle and Peppermint go back and forth, with Trishelle saying that it all started with Trishelle making a bad joke. Peppermint tells Trishelle she should not get into comedy. Max speaks up in favor of Peppermint. Peppermint and Trishelle raise their voices. At this point, the faithfuls should vote out one of these two just to stop the distraction from their traitor hunting endeavors. Larsa brings up Peppermint slipped up and said she was a traitor, and Peppermint owns up to saying it. They bring up John's breathing. John says he was asthmatic in his youth. Tamara is set off by this, and they go back and forth about the semantics of asthma, which we covered earlier. They head into the voting, and I think John's case is better than Peppermint's, given that they don't like his breathing, and Peppermint said she was a traitor like an hour before. They get to the voting, and it's split votes. I'm always going to say who the traitors voted for and who voted for traitors. All of the traitors voted for Peppermint, who does end up getting the majority of the votes and is banished from the game. Peppermint does her reveal to the group, saying she came to the show because she's a fan and advocate for the transgender community. She reveals that she's a faithful, and everyone's devastated, including Trishelle, especially Trishelle. And Sheree is pissed at the group, especially Trishelle. Let's take a beat here to talk about Peppermint, who I thought was an awesome get for this cast. Someone who fans of Drag Race have been wanting to be back on TV for a while. Anyone who watches that show knows that Peppermint is one of the sweetest, most congenial people to come from Drag Race. I was really expecting a deep run from Peppermint here. In my video, I was pretty assured that she was going to be in the final, really reflecting on where things went wrong for her. Firstly, I feel like with casting, she gets set off with a bit of a disadvantage, where on top of a major lack of LGBTQIA representation on this show, you're telling me you couldn't find more than one person from RuPaul's Drag Race to be on this cast. So I could totally see Peppermint in the early game feeling like she needs to get her footing. So Peppermint needs some grace, and what do you know, she doesn't get any grace because Trishelle comes for her the first day. Trishelle, who, putting it nicely, has a problematic history of picking fights with people who are different than her. Look up Trishelle versus Anissa fight online to know what I mean. Really putting Peppermint on the back foot for the whole rest of the game. Then she feels attacked, she's trying to defend herself, people think that she's defensive now. She slips up, calls herself a traitor by accident, which was really, really bad. But they were looking for a reason. All in all, I just say justice for Peppermint, but I have to move on. I'm getting into rant territory. After the banishment, Deontay gets emotional to Sandra and Peter, relating to Peppermint and feeling guilty. Trishelle obviously doesn't like being under pressure and gets emotional after being pressed by Marcus and Max. Everyone goes to bed, and it's time for Parvati to find out who the other traitors are. The episode ends with Phaedra and Dan revealing themselves to Parvati. So on the next episode, they're gonna murder someone. Wrapping things up, I think it would be a good idea for these three to murder Sandra at this point, because Sandra's doing a really good job staying under the radar, and she's coming for Parvati, but Parvati doesn't know that. I'm gonna watch the third episode right now. After I watch it, I'm gonna record the video and schedule it to post Monday morning. Subscribe so you don't miss it, but thanks for listening, and I'll see you then. Bye.